Secularism is the intelligent person's atheism. If atheism is a negative petulance regarding the ultimate father figure, secularism is more of a studious avoidance of the question altogether. Atheism could even be considered pure evil, the theory of evil, whereas secularism is applied evil or the practice of evil. If atheists go out of their way to parade their ability to doubt, secularists assume physical reality is the only possible option and carry on as if it were. However, it is a bit over the top to assume the dominant theme in the West for 2,000 years could be ignored, without some repercussions, as if the past was no longer relevant. The success of secularists has gradually weaned intellectuals from thinking science gives the educated a special path to God. Even if Christian and Jewish researchers are way more productive than their secular counterparts, the truth is, empirical science requires hard evidence, and this requirement cannot be achieved using quotations from Scripture. However, secularists are of the opinion that the God hypothesis was a failed paradigm to begin with. They even claim that despite the preponderance of Christians in the development of science, no scientist used his faith to advance science. The assumption has been that the Bible can be ignored and not impact the work of science. To some extent, this has proved to be the case. Physics was developed by Christians but has also been developed by atheists. Hawkins was as much an atheist as any troll on Facebook. It is common knowledge, at least among the educated, that empirical science is only capable of generating contingent truths. There is no path to the empirical proving of reality as an independent construct. Atheism exists on a flimsy foundation. In fact, the secular worldview is an exercise in confirmation bias and circular reasoning. Secular has no evidence for a material universe. Its best evidence is that provided by a fist hitting a table. Secularism is phenomenologist. The evidence for a physical reality is based on what we perceive through the five senses. One could argue from this fact alone that their sense of reality is magical. How does one get from an electrical impulse firing in the brain to an objective reality? If there's a leap of faith, this would be it. Is it necessarily so that if our senses are stimulated, something must be causing the stimulus? What is a physical stimulus? Nothing exists but forces, and forces are only known by relative resistance. To turn the relative strength of forces into proof of a physical reality is tantamount to a magical trick. The corollary to the fist hitting the table test is the psychokinesis test. If we cannot manipulate reality by means of our minds, then it must not be a product of our minds. This assumes our minds are the passive recipients of reality. This appears to be a reasonable assumption, but it is based on circular reasoning. Not is there any evidence that minds are passive observers. Banging the table with your fist only makes sense if you have already assumed that your senses accurately represent reality. But even in your own world view, what you have is the nerves of your hand and eyes telling you that your hand is hitting a table. But all of this is taking place in your mind, not out there in some hypothetical objective reality. Your mind has to create something out of the electrical impulses that your peripheral senses transmit to the brain. Why would we suppose that our minds can alter reality, unless embedded in something objectively real? Is the mind objectively real? We cannot make numbers do anything we wish. Numbers and colors are not objectively real. On what basis do we assume that if a physical tree does not exist in a physically objective reality, we would be able to make it change its size and dance around? Trees are green and planted firmly in the ground. A tree is what a tree is. We cannot make it something different and it still be a tree. If we could make a tree sing, it would no longer be a tree. If we could add 3 to 4 and make the result 10, a 3 would no longer be a 3. Logic is no more amenable to random modifications than the physical world would be, if it existed. Reality cannot be reconciled to an illusion. It's called reality for a reason. Reality and illusions would not be distinct ideas if they could be merged. When dealing with reality, we are dealing with information. If it has no meaning, it does not fulfill the conditions of information. Man and woman used to be distinct ideas. Now the left is attempting to turn these ideas into an illusion, but they are finding it difficult to do. The imagery is not that easy to obliterate. The resilience of the idea does not mean that man and woman are objective entities, because they are not. Men and women are categories, not things. In this sense, the label is as artificial as any other. Men and women are concepts, but even if the words can change with language, the ideas are not malleable. A man is a man is a man, in whatever language it is spoken. It is not a matter of trying to make man look like woman or vice versa. If you want to prove men do not exist, you need to obliterate the idea. We do not think of what the left does or attempts to do with language as being magical, but the idea of magic and activity of the left leaves little on which to separate them. We have looked at their attempts to eliminate the differences between man and woman. But the same kind of thinking can be seen in atheists' attempts to demonstrate God has no relevance. Atheists do not use science and logic as normal people would do when making arguments. By the way they argue, they are declaring truth is not what we think it is. In various ways, liberals call down dark powers onto those who oppose them. The baby killing and the immolation of self on the pyre of genderism are forms of demonic sacrifice. The greatest of all denials is the denial of identity. But the demonic foundation of liberalism is found in the least likely of places, the denial of reality itself. A reality that is contingent, relativistic, and based on probabilities is a non-existent reality. If we understand dark magic as about manifesting a reality that denies reality, it becomes obvious that black magic is inherently nihilistic. Black magic is less about what it is creating than what it is attempting to destroy. If we understand nihilism, we understand better what is going on with atheism. There is a total denial of spirit in atheism, yet where does that leave them? If spirit does not exist, the world must become flesh. Note, this is the opposite of Christ. In him, all flesh is reconciled in spirit. No one is saved in the flesh. We often think about physical man being the product of a reality composed of matter, energy, space, and time, what we call the meshed universe. Man was made in the image of God, as spirit. Turned into flesh, the nature of man becomes malleable. The flesh can be modified to match identity, as happens with transgenderism. Male and female is, in the flesh, just a word. Atheists conjure up identity because identify no longer has any meaning for those in the flesh. Identity is what the necromancer conjures up out of the darkness. Identity is just a cloak put on over the flesh. Liberals even deny nations exist. Atheists claim borders are imaginary. They even attempt to claim we are one people and thus that there is no good and evil. But the truth cannot be destroyed. God exists and He created the world that exists belongs to Him. The world is truth and created by Him from truth. The truth cannot be destroyed, only hidden in the lies of the flesh. If reality is truth, it cannot be changed, only hidden. A lie is always a magical spell, as it is always an attempt to hide or obfuscate the truth. The person who murders is evil, murders in the name of a reality that does not exist. The motive for murder is never rational because it never reflects reality. Murder is an attempt to manifest and make real the false reality of the murderer. Indeed, the killing of another human being indicates the level of hate the murderer has for those who deny the reality he seeks to manifest. We do not normally attribute necromancy to liars and thieves, yet the intent of the magician and necromancer is the same and the means are the same. Movies may make the magician more flamboyant than the liar is in real life, but necromancy is still a process of using hidden forces to change the nature of reality. Whether the force is hidden in the eye of the newt and leg of the toad, or in bullets or the legal process, the elements are the same. The bottom line is that the necromancer gains physical vindication. The evil one gains the maiden, the kingdom, or the prized jewel. Regardless of the type of magic or how it is used, black magic manipulates the hidden forces to acquire physical assets. Magic is about control over property. If one can control bank accounts, or physical bodies, or capital, one can amass great power, meaning property that one has authority over. To be secular is to have access to the levers of the flesh. The secularist can use physical force in all of its forms to acquire wealth and power. In the end, that is all black magic and secularism is, harnessing ungodly forces for the acquisition of power over the physical world. This definition acquires more significance when we understand physical reality is composed of unseen forces that are amenable to being manipulated by human beings. Secularism is all about learning how to control and manipulate these forces to get rich and powerful, and there you have it. Secularism comes down to nothing more, no matter how you look at it, than a way to get rich without working.